I move that we approve resolution of the Gateway School District hereby authorize the proper district officials to list for sale the property known as the Gateway Middle School, some 26 plus or minus acres.
Second.
I'll second for the sake of discussion.
Motion and a second. Motion by Mr. O'Donnell, second by Mr. Lapsovich. Questions or comments?
So why is this an action item tonight, Mr. O'Donnell?
We need to move on, and it's the time to do it.
So my concern is that this is going to go up as a residential property now, since we haven't had a commercial rezoning.
I think it's going to be listed as,
Let me help you with that.
yeah, sure.
It will be listed as it's known presently. That doesn't, any buyer that has interest in this property can, on its own, decide to bring forward a counter proposal to us if we get it, if somebody's interested and say, either you get it rezoned commercial or we'll get it rezoned commercial. And then there'll be the discussion about, you can only sell it right now for what it is, and that's residential. If it later can be rezoned to commercial and you still own it, you'll get the benefit of that. If it doesn't get rezoned to commercial while you still own it, and you've given up title to it, then somebody's gonna pay a lesser price as residential. But what I'm trying to say to you is there'll be negotiation with anybody that wants to get this property, because you're gonna say, look, the highest and best use for this property is commercial. And maybe the two, you and the potential buyer, go to the municipality and say, hey, look, we'd like to get this rezoned commercial. In other words, you start all over again.
Right, but you're kind of talking about price.
That's the only thing that concerns me.
Well, what concerns me is that, we've had this conversation before, everybody in this community is concerned about what could possibly go into that property, right? We've had this discussion many times. I mentioned a few at the last meeting, wasn't real well received by a couple people, but, you know, it's good to talk about these things publicly. And for example, another concern that came to me from a citizen, some of the rumors that are out there was, well, what if an institution for, what do I want to say, like a juvenile detention center wants to buy that property, they can put in a juvenile detention center there on a residential property, and we can't really stop them from doing that, can we?
All you can do is list a purchase price. And if the buyer is willing to pay your purchase price, it's none of your business what he puts on the property.
So if somebody wanted to keep a juvenile detention center out of Monroeville, what would they be able to do to prevent that at this point?
Well, if the property's zoned and it permits juvenile detention facilities, there's nothing you can do.
Okay, so is a commercial zoning, would that prevent a juvenile detention center?
As I recollect, and I don't have the zoning ordinance in front of me, those kinds of uses are not permitted in commercial C2.
So there is something that can be done to prevent a juvenile detention center from moving into that property.
Well, the something is the zoning ordinance. Yeah.
Something would be to rezone the property commercial.
Right, if you want this property to be used in a fashion, you have to first get your zoning to comply with it. In other words, they have to sync up. And if you're not gonna get necessarily all the commercial possible buyers looking at this property since it's zoned residential, you're gonna get some because they're gonna realize that they might be able to get it rezoned. And they'll extend to you probably an option, saying if we can get this rezoned, we'll pay this. If we can't get it rezoned, we'll only pay that.
We're not, there's no intention of putting a price tag on this.
Well, when you put it up for sale, I think your broker's gonna say, well, okay, you got it for sale, now how much,
No.
what's the purchase?
We're not going to say that. What we're doing is we're putting it on the market for sale, and I think we're going to identify it as, you know, property good for commercial development. Okay,
That's fine.
which is actually what you told me. And this is actually in response to Rick McIntyre, who said, you know, let's be clear that we're putting it up in the market for sale, and so, you know, putting this forward. Now, if somebody comes forward and offers us X amount of money and they want to do what you want to do, you just don't have to accept it.
Generally speaking, I think you could, it's conceivable, you could do it that way, but remember, when you list your house for sale with a realtor, there's a place on that sales agreement that says, this is the amount of money you want.
Yes,
The buyer is gonna say, well, wait a minute, I mean, tell us you want $100 million.
Yes.
And maybe I'll write you a check for it.
Sure.
Tell me it's only worth 10 million. They're gonna want you to set the ceiling. The buyer's gonna say, well, how much do you want for the property?
but I don't think that's in our best interest. I think our best interest is to get out of the market.
Yeah, I think,
and
I know what
solicit
you're trying to
offers.
do, and that is to make the property more available for public input as far as some of the potential commercial buyers.
Right. The overwhelming interest, at least in my judgment, that we're gonna get for this property is gonna be commercial. That's gonna be the highest and best use. Now, we're not going to be able to determine the value of this property until we go to market. That's the bottom line.
Right, I realize that, and so
Yeah.
the public understands that it's been advised to us that the next step is to put the property for sale so that we can find out basically what it's worth.
Right.
Did we get our commercial and residential appraisals yet?
No, not yet.
Do we know when we're gonna get our appraisals?
Today.
Tonight.
Hopefully. Yeah.
We're getting our appraisals tonight, and we don't know the values, and we're making a motion to put it up for sale before we have the numbers, as residential property.
It's available for commercial development, but it's currently zoned for residential. But I think we need to understand that commercial developers, during their due diligence period, they're gonna come to understand that the highest and best use is as commercial. And they're gonna offer, if we don't already have it zoned commercially, there's gonna be a contingent offer, contingent upon zoning approval as commercial. So in order for us to validate the appraisal, it's gotta go to market. The appraisal has value, we went out and secured it, but the only real measure of a property's value is a willing
what you're gonna
buyer,
get.
willing seller.
Right. So we all agree that it would be in our best interest, that we would get the most money for this property if it was sold as a commercial
Correct.
property. And that now it's going to have to be contingent probably upon it getting approved for commercial, and it may affect the selling price.
Correct. But
And
I
that's
think,
kind of the position we've been put in.
exactly, you're exactly right. Now, I think Bill is putting together some material to try to advance a movement to get it zoned commercially, but, but as Rick just said, that's the position we've been put in, so,
But it's also my understanding that we can't decline the sale of a property based on conditional use of what the buyer intends to do with that, which is why I have a little bit of reluctance to sell it as a residential property.
but again, we're not putting a price tag on it. If somebody comes forward, we're certainly permitted, to the best of my knowledge, to ask what's the intended use, okay?
But they could buy they could tell us, my intended use is A, they could buy the property, they could turn around and resell it.
That's correct.
Or they could change the intended use, and there's nothing we can do about it.
And that applies under a commercial listing as well.
Yeah, we could
Except a
sell-
commercial
we could sell
listing would
commercial.
keep out some of those things that we want to keep out.
But it might permit some things we don't want.
Like
For
what?
example, I believe, I'm not sure about this, but I own property right down the road, and a permitted use is logging. Forestry use.
Well, that's not permitted in commercial.
Well, okay, it may not be, but I'm just saying, is you right or wrong?
Bad
Just
example.
around the corner, that.
Nice try.
Pardon?
Conditional use is major timbering and logging operation, number 12 of conditional use.
Thank you.
Commercial.
Commercial
Commercial.
C2.
Thank you. John's my solicitor, and as
John's got
such.
the zoning ordinance.
Yes, well,
I don't care
so
what
I,
I'm done with it.
Well, let me give you part 2 of that as well. As Mary Beth said, conditional C2 does not include juvenile delinquent centers. That's not a permitted
Right.
use.
Under
Either
Right.
commercial, whether permitted or conditional, neither one of those
but
allowed.
logging is.
But logging is right.
So
have logging than a juvenile detention center.
perhaps you've
Let's
never
be
lived
realistic. None of that's
downwind
gonna
of
I
a
see a
pulp mill.
beautiful synergy happening.
Listen, we're gonna be confronted with this scenario no matter what, today, tomorrow, whatever. When we get the appraisal in, which is gonna happen today,
We don't want that out.
Yeah,
It's
I'm-
not
I'm gonna
permitted,
say- I'm
right.
gonna get finished, and I'm gonna say something about the appraisal. Go ahead. Because Mary Beth wasn't there when I made the statements.
I'm done.
We're gonna get this appraisal in possibly tonight, tomorrow. I want you to understand that that appraisal is a private document that's gonna be shared with this board and not the public. It is not subject to right to know. You know, you've gotta keep some of this information close to your vest as this matter goes on. You're gonna have to get court approval of whatever sale takes place. That appraisal is gonna play a role in it. You don't want the potential buyers knowing what the appraisal value is, the appraised value is. Because they may be offering more than the appraised value. And
We certainly hope they
just
are.
don't tell anybody
Yeah.
about the appraisal other than to speak it among yourselves. And I don't know whether you were there when I said that. So just remember that as we move forward.
So Steve, with due respect, I'm going to vote no on this when it comes to a vote in a minute or two, because I'm going to hold out for the hope that we're able to get this zoned first as C2, because I still have the strong feeling that will get us the biggest bang for the buck, that allows us to keep all of our cards hidden, which is what we need to do for a sale. And I think that the confusion that occurred a couple weeks ago at that meeting was simply that, confusion that can dissipate over time. People have had a chance now to see, you know, time after time after time, the replay of that event on the local cable access. They saw all the arguments on both sides of it. We wanted to get our cards on the table so the public could know what our intentions are, and that Monroeville Municipal Council and the Gateway School Board both have the best interests of the citizens and the students of the district, not just for us, but for Pitcairn as well. So I'm gonna, with respect, I'm gonna vote no on this and hold out for C2.
Sure.
Just if I could. Really? Now, I'm kind of, I think maybe, there might be some other people on the board who are kind of in the same position where I'm firmly between the two of you right now.
Good.
Where I'm not sure what the right call is. I would say maybe in favor of what you're saying, maybe we vote to table it until we come to a resolution on whether we get the zoning. Coming in, that's kind of where I was leaning, but I'd like to hear something from Director O'Donnell about like why this should happen tonight as opposed to maybe a few weeks from now. You know, what do we stand to gain from putting it on the market as it is now versus waiting a couple weeks, seeing if we get the C2 and then moving from there?
Quite honestly, you know, after talking with the municipal council members, et cetera, I don't have any confidence that we're going to secure a C2 from them until we're able to put a use on the table. And the only way we're going to be able to put a potential use on the table is by getting an offer. And so it's not going to be a couple of weeks. That could be months. It could be months, or we may never get a C2 until we put an offer on the table with a conditional use.
But Dr. Short, I almost got to miss you. You have a meeting coming up fairly soon, if I'm not correct, if I'm corrected, with another presentation to council, kind of solidifying where we're at. And we're hoping that from that meeting, maybe we get a better flavor of where they're coming down on the vote and whether we move forward on it. And what I'm saying is it going to hurt us if we just wait to see what happens at that meeting? And I'm not disagreeing with you, Steve.
Yeah.
I think you may be right.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely the gist I got from that last meeting was we're not going to get it. But right now they're open to listening again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mr. Ritter makes a good point. I think maybe we just hold off on this until we at least sit down with them again, as they've asked us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, if we don't feel like we're gonna get the rezoning, then bam, we move forward the next day with this.
That's a possibility that could happen. That could take 2-3 weeks. It could take 2 or 3 months. I know that as of the last meeting, we don't have the votes to secure that from council, okay? And I don't think it's wise for us to continue to delay placing this property on the market. I just think when we've been, first of all, everybody knows this property is for sale. All right?
Let's just make it official.
We're just making it official, okay? And the more we tarry, the more rates rise, and perhaps the less attractive the property becomes from a financial perspective to a buyer. I just think it's in our best interest to get off to move it ahead.
Dr. Short, do you have a firm date on that meeting?
Not yet. I did speak with the mayor today. We are throwing around a couple dates, and we should have something set soon.
Okay.
So, Rick, there's one other wrinkle to this. When Mr. Ron Harvey, the councilman from the Ward 3 where the Gateway Middle School exists, asked a question to the audience there. He said, all who would first like to know who is going to purchase the property before we sell it, say aye. Everybody said aye. Two things about that. He didn't ask the second question. All who don't need to know beforehand, say aye. And I know that there were some there who were willing to do what they call trust the school board in its approach, namely to try to get it zoned C2 first. The other wrinkle with that is, all who would first like to know who's going to purchase the property before we sell it. I want to know that, however, I know it's impossible to know that. I want to know the future, but that desire to know the future doesn't make me able to know the future. And so, if Ron Harvey demands that we first know the future before he votes in favor of it, he's putting an unrealistic expectation on this poor school board. So the way the market works is we step forward and we trust that we will make the best, this board or some future board will make the best decision at this time. And where we are right now is, best decision we can see is to open all options before us, which means we have to get it zoned C2 first. That's how we open the door. So that's why I'm in favor of letting this sit for a while.
Or, you know, if we think that we can maybe make a move on them and get them to turn, if we put it up for sale now, and then this meeting goes the way we want it to, and then we have the rezoning, and then it's already on the market.
I don't care, that's fine.
You know, everything's kind of
Sure.
smooth at that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know where you're at, but I mean, it's either we make a motion to approve this now, or or if you want to make a motion to table it.
I've made a motion.
There is a motion on
Has it
it?
been seconded?
It was seconded
Oh,
for
yeah, there's a
discussion.
second one. Okay.
Yeah.
George, actually.
I'm
Right.
just gonna make a comment too. Steve, on your side, I don't wanna say side, whatever, but trusting that once we do put it up, even if it's as residential, which it is now, that we will have people come forward to find out what needs to be done. Their interest would be saying, okay, we wanna put, for instance, a strip mall. We would have something to go back to council with to say this is a possibility, that, you know, look at it to be rezoned. You're not gonna have anything to come up. So I feel, put it on the market as is.
For clarity, she said strip mall.
I said strip.
Okay, thank you.
Strip. I mean, that's what's going mostly now on the roadway.
Right.
So,
It'll be six mattress firms,
And a guardian
right
storage.
in a row.
With the Starbucks. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, Bonnie?
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mrs. Cerrucci.
Aye.
Mr. Gottman.
What's this for now?
Really?
To actually make this happen.
Putting it
To
up
put
for
it up
sale
for sale.
residential.
No.
Dr. Kalkstein.
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich.
Aye.
Mr. McIntyre.
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Aye.
Mr. Ritter.
No.
Mrs. Warning.
aye.
Motion carries.